Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak. And today I will present a similar presentation like I gave last year, but with a little bit more perspective on initiatives and also some more future outlook what we are doing at the moment. Okay, so with the stuff what we are doing in our group is a little bit all over the place. So we are trying to have our fingers a little bit also in the molecular world and the clinical world and in data science. And then at the same time we try to frame our research as education. So what do I mean with this? So, before we start to talk about the portal, which is, I think, the title of this presentation, I just want to also raise a little bit about awareness. So, and this is particularly important for the industry people in the room. So the number of individuals who have an SLC6 related disorder is, not that small, so we estimate it's around about 100 new patients per year just by giving birth. And this is a slide which I've presented many times based on a statistical model which we have developed. However, it's important to acknowledge that if you read the literature, that it becomes more and more apparent that there is also another group of individuals which contributes to the incidence and prevalence of the disease, and this is individuals who have a mutation which was inherited. So at the moment, these numbers, which we often cite in the literature, and don't consider those individuals. And there have been recently quite good studies, and this is one from the Danish group, where they list several. I think there are like almost 20 families here, where they show that the phenotypic spectrum can vary among inherited variants with people who have SLC6A1 related disorders. And although I'm a little bit skeptical when it comes always to the missense variants because they're not so easy to interpret, I just specifically highlight here two families where a truncating variant was passed on. And here the effect of the variant is very likely to be nonsense-mediated decay and then therefore haploinsufficiency. And you can see here also that the variant was once presumably inherited and the second family was confirmed inherited. So the numbers which we cite currently in the literature are likely deflated. Okay. So this is my usual pitch, right? Bring data together, make better future. So it's really important, that we combine the different resources, the natural history studies, the individual registries, the citizen data, which is electronic health record data, and so on and so forth. Why, right? So because I think it's became now very apparent in the in the last year in particular. But also there was already emerging evidence before. But I think it's now very, very clear that that everyone appreciates that not every patient has the same disease mechanism molecularly, which can lead to an SLC6A1 disorder. What do I mean with this? It seems that there is a gradient from complete loss of function to partial loss of function. And why is it important? Because all the drugs we are focusing these days on, they act on mechanism. And if you have a drug which acts on mechanism, you need to consider also the mechanism in the patient. So a traditional drug you would dose until you are in the therapeutic window and you want to avoid adverse effects. It washes out, and if you were not really in the therapeutic window, you can try it again and you get there at some point. However, for many of the disease-modifying therapies where we are talking a lot about, you may have only a single shot. So you need to have a very strong expectation if your patient has for example, in this example here in the middle where my mouse is, has a complete loss of function, because then, your dosage would, be a certain, concentration. However, if you would have a patient where you apply the same concentration, but it would only be a partial loss of function, you might push it into a level where it has adverse effects. So this is a concern to think about. It's the concern for a dosage effect towards is less compared to other disorders, but we still need to understand this a little bit more. So so that's definitely a case for ST601. Okay, so how can aggregated data help us? So, and the good thing is I can give you now some examples. So because we actually did this, and when I say we as a community. So this year we published a study. So where we aggregated information from 130 individuals with an SSC6A1 related disorder, and we looked at the variants, in particular the missense variants, and also the structure was just resolved, but at the end doesn't matter because AlphaFold does a good job. So anyway, so what we noticed is that patient variants and functional data, so let's say functional data, which has been generated by the team around BioMarin and Caddy's lab, that the readouts of these experiments were different if the variants were located in the transporter axis or if they were more outside of the transporter. As a very simple rule of thumb, the closer the variant is to the transporter center, the more extreme is the loss of function compared to more outside. So you can see a nice gradient here. And this is not because it's magic, it's because there's a ligand binding site. And if that is modified due to a variant, then the transporter works less effective. So, and if spatial distance is too rocket science for you, you can also just think about this in terms of domains. And you observe that there are certain domains in the GAT1 transporter where you can see, for the molecular experiments which have been done, that they typically lead to an extreme lack of activity of the transporter. So, and this is really, data from, not generated bars. It's like available from the community through preprints and to collaboration with scientists. So, and this information can be used for assessments. We know that we have spatially now this relationship where variants are located, and what degree of loss of function is expected. And that can be used to, assess the disease mechanism in individuals where we have not even done an experiment yet because there's a spatial relationship. Okay, so but the interesting thing is when we looked at clinical severity, because there are different versions of GAT1 or SSC6A1 related disorders reported, we also tried to do this spatial correlation, and we observed that as a rule of thumb, it's, the disease tend to be a little bit more severe the closer it's really to the ligand binding site, so in this transporter middle. However, the relationship was weaker than we expected. And this can be explained by, on the one hand, and this is certainly a strong factor, that we have garbage clinical data to work with. And so with more clinical data, which we can share, and can curate as a community, we can do a better job here, because how a person is, defined clinically across different centers and different age groups by different types of experts, that's can really mask how the data looks at the end in our tables. So, and we at the moment have hardly any chance to go back and curate this. So that's certainly a factor. And however, there could also be another explanation, and this is certainly one which needs to be more further explored in research, and that is that the clinical spectrum of an individual can be masked through other factors. So you can have a similar looking, or you can have the similar disease mechanism on single variant level. However, not every patient may look the same, and this is observed across many monogenic disorders. It's not random. Every variant has a range, but there is certainly not every patient looks very identical. And this is important to recognize because the disease mechanism and the response to a therapeutic might still be more homogeneous because they have the same underlying rare variant, although the patient may look different. So it's important to understand the relationship from these factors. And just to illustrate a little bit what I'm talking about here, is imagine you have like 4 siblings or like 4 friends, John, Joe, James, and Jim, who have all SSC6A1 related variants. But they're all a little bit different. So John has a complete loss of function variant, and he lives basically in a hospital because the parents are, for some reason, he lives there, and he received directly the best care in the world, okay? So, and he has, you know, a lot of therapy, so occupational therapy, language therapy, whatever. So that individual was in a very strong environment, supportive, okay? So they selected the best drug right from the get-go. This is version 1. Okay, Joe has also a loss of function variant. However, he was very unlucky. When he was young, he also had like a severe infection and had really trouble eating and was a long time in the hospital. Okay? So then we think about James. He has only a partial loss of function variant. And if we look at James' family a little bit closer, there is, you know, a little bit more going on. You see that his grandfather had epilepsy, and he had a cousin with autism. So maybe James' family is a little bit more vulnerable towards neurological disease or psychiatric disease. And finally, we think about Jim. He has also a partial loss of function variant. And unfortunately, his clinical team was not really trained in recognizing atypical seizures, and this was very late diagnosed. And the team also selected the drugs which, you know, should be at the end of the list to test. So I think in this very black and white example, what I bring here, it should be clear that that all these kind of factors which I present can have an effect on the clinical expression of the individual, let's say by the age of 15. We wouldn't expect that everyone looks the same, right? So, but this is just a hypothesis. Without data, we cannot prove anything of this. And it's really important that we, you know, collect data as a team, involve people who know the data, curate the data, and put it together that we can study the relationship from these different factors which can contribute or modify a clinical representation, that we know when we enroll someone in a clinical trial, that even if a patient may not look the same, they may still respond the same way to a drug. Okay, so this was entertainment, but now it's the part of the talk where I'm supposed to talk about. So, and how do we or what is one way to not only collect the data, but also share it? So we developed the SSC6A1 portal, and we is a large community of investigators. Here we have educational resources about SSC6A1, and we have at the moment 130 individuals in that on that page. I bet that if the people here in the room would come together, I think we should have probably at least, I don't know, 150 to 200 patient data in this page to educate and our community. There's at the moment no mouse, there's data in there. We could at least link out all the cellular models, the mouse models, and web pages and investigators to reach out to. At the moment, that's not in there. So we have some educational content and additional resources. So the link, I showed the link multiple times. There's also interface for variant analysis. So you can type in your variant and learn about the clinical spectrum for each carrier. Is the variant is pathogenic or not? Has it been functionally tested? Because there are almost 200 functional experiments done, and so on and so forth. This will enhance the use for genetic counselors or geneticists. And you can learn in this example, for example, if that variant has been functionally tested, and you see now where it's located, and that variants in that region typically have, and you see this, scroll down in a second, only like I think 20% wild type activity, and this is here the very right one. You can see here the typical functional readout for this variants in that region. Okay, so then there's more research interface for people who are interested in genotype, phenotype, and so on. So this portal is now online, I think, a year, and we published on this. This came out. The study came only out in summer, and we also developed other portals. So what do we learn from these kind of things? Because we always want to be in the head in the future, right? We don't want to stay think in the moment. So good thing is it seems really that our more science-heavy community is enjoying these resources and has plays with it and makes more informed decisions. And some genetic counselors who are really into this community also use it. That's great. We can pat our shoulders with that. But the problem is the vast majority of people who care for children with SS6A1 don't use it. And over the last 5-6 years, I've given so many workshops for neurologists and pediatric neurologists, and using some online resources, bioinformatics, or just teaching genetics. And I'm very pessimistic that this is the way to go these days. That said, we are giving next week a 2-day workshop for neurologists in genetic test interpretation with more than 100 attendees or around about 100 attendees from all over the world in Houston, but still not giving up on this. We are still not giving up on portals, but we need to find an additional approach. Yeah, so traditionally, so there's one way, and that's the next slide. So I don't know if that's the only way. So how we, there. I just bring my personal perspective. There are probably smarter people in the room who have a different approach. But my approach was in the past developing software for people that they can use it and to provide education. And that worked more in the researchy realm, but this researchy realm is a tiny amount of the typically not that sees the fewest numbers of patients. So finally, the approach is now let's do it ourselves. So this is something which we will release in spring, probably next year. We will have a really end-to-end genetic test interpretation pipeline where you just have to enter your variant, regardless which gene. It will be more enhanced for epilepsy because we can plug in all the resources we have because we're doing so much research in that space. And that's one thing. So, but I truly believe that just an online resource alone, people don't feel comfortable with this. We need to do more. So, and this is the second part. So, with my start at UT and Houston, I became the director for the Center for Neurogenetics. And I have now genetic counselors. 2 of them are here, Emily and Emily, if you can raise your hands. So, and we are building the team further up and also have neurologists in the team and so on and so forth. So, one of these initiatives is now that we will, at least for the US, provide a nationwide genetic counseling service. And this is a second opinion genetic counseling service. So what does it mean? So if you have a genetic test result and you feel that you want to hear or learn more about this, and you maybe where you are, that information was not confidently provided, or you felt that there could be more to get out of this, you can just receive a clinical service from our team, and we will reanalyze the genetic test and provide a lot of more research-heavy information, and then have the opportunity to talk to our skilled genetic counselors who will be very much trained in clinical spectrum of SS6A1 disorders and research outlooks in clinical trials, who knows. So, and I hope the slide would be extended by the end of next year, where we also have then a center of excellence for where we can run clinical trials. So that's the plan. So becoming more invasive in the clinical space. Okay, so in summary, there is a range of SS6A1 disorders that's now quite clear. Fortunately, it's a range which is between partial and complete loss of function, which is good for the clinical trial design strategy. There's also a good relationship between where the variant is located and what does it do. So this can be included when designing clinical trials or patient selection, and also for therapeutics in the future. And there's genotype to phenotype correlation, but we need to do a little bit more research to understand the role of confounders. But this is not specific for SS6A1. This is across all monogenic diseases. So, and I think we should tackle this as a community, not individually, gene by gene, just burning money. So, and the SS6A1 portal is running, and I encourage everyone to participate in this. The more people to contribute, if it's just improving adding tutorials, communication, more visuals, data, links to your research, who knows? That can all be done. And we will establish a clinical service for those who need more help with the genetic test results. And this, so you can just send a referral. And it's likely to be a self-pay model. That's the only way where we can do this on a nationwide level. For people in Texas, we can do this also for insurance level. Just establish regular care. And yeah, with this I will close and thank the community who participated in the SS6A portal project so far. I hope that we have another paper in 1 or 2 years from now with 10 times the amount of people contributing. And here are Eduardo, Katrine, Tobias, and Arthur, who contributed majorly to the portal and this first study. Thank you very much.